Yup, that's me, walking out of prison for the first time in 17 years, and you can see it all over my face. I've been through hell. 2003, I was sentenced to 144 years in prison by the Commonwealth of Virginia, and to be honest with you, I'm not supposed to be free. I wasn't supposed to even be given the opportunity to tell this story. And before I get started, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and most importantly, stay free.
And just like that, he lost his life 2 days before he was supposed to go home after doing over 10 years, surviving God knows what while behind those walls, only to lose his life 2 days before he was going home. Right as he was about to just get called for a visit, and he wouldn't have been in that situation. We wanted to know why our friend was assaulted and eventually lost his life. We just wanted to know the reason. So we've been getting to do homework. The institution was on lockdown. They started to pull guys out different pods. They actually got a guard as well off the compound, and stories started to come out. And the story that started to come out was that Brother Anthony had ran up a slight debt. And to pay off his debt, he had agreed to give Big his TV. In the meanwhile, before Brother Anthony could get packed up one last time to go home and give Big his TV, his cousin came up. Brother Anthony's cousin came up from the institution, didn't have anything. And Brother Anthony made the decision that because of his family, he would give him his TV and a couple other articles of property. Well, aside from that, Brother Anthony's game plan was that he was going to duck Big until he was home. And he'd never see him again. That was the plan. But it didn't work out like that. He made the fatal mistake of going to the yard that day instead of making himself small so he can get home. He made the mistake, I have to believe, of not understanding that everybody doesn't have a release date when we was up there. A lot of people had life sentences and weren't necessarily happy because you were walking out the gate. I don't know if that was the reason or what may have increased the level of what occurred. But man, he should have played it safer. Instead of him paying his debt, like I said, he gave the cousin his TV. Thought he was going to duck Big. Brother Anthony went out to the yard. He just, again, wanted to say what's up to us. And when he was on the yard, one last time, that's when it went down. A crooked guard let Big and his people onto that yard, and they did what they did. They assaulted him first, and, after that, it escalated, and Brother Anthony's no longer here. It reminded me going through that situation that I better understand and never forget that I can't get comfortable. I'm not home until I'm home. Don't let your guard down. Don't let people know when you're going home. Like, there's just certain things. Don't run up the debt. That's why I be telling a lot of people in the chat. Like, it was an overall. It wasn't a moment of clarity, but it was a moment where it was. I guess the serious switch got all the way hit. It's like you go from watching the news and hearing about somebody going through something, because you would hear about other violent acts being occurred on the penitentiary, but you never knew who it was. But when it happens to somebody, it changes your perspective forever. It puts you on guard. That's why a lot of us are in fight and flight. We're stuck in that pattern. It took me a year, too, man. I don't know, whatever, to decompress and get out of that. The next thing I remember after Brother Anthony's passing, ironically enough, and I think it's important to illustrate in this part of the story, is once we had came off lock, we're in the dorm, we're chilling, it's store day, and here goes another situation. Brother had owed the store box man, $80 or whatever. And if y'all don't know what the store box is, it's basically, I got a bunch of commissary. If you don't, you can come to me. You can get 2 items and give 3 back. There's a tax involved, but you can get it from me. But on store box, I need that and the tax. And some individuals, they fall victim to these store boxes, and they're caught in this vicious cycle where every time they get commissary, they got to give up the whole bag. So of course they go back and store box again. This young brother had a bad habit of store boxing, gambling, etc. Now, he paid the store box man all of the debt, $80 except for one item. It was a 34-cent Moonlog bag of shebang chips. I'll never forget it. Youngins playing poker, and the old head who owned the store box came up to him. He said, "Hey man, you got everything straight, but you're missing one bag of chips. Can you just get it for me when they crack the sales open, and then we could square everything away?" He said, "I got you, OG." He said, "I gave you everything else though, right?" OG was like, "Yeah, but I still need my 34-cent bag of chip though, because you said you would give me that. And it's been an agreement." So dude was like, "All right, I got you." Cell doors opened up. He don't go get the bag of chips. He's locked into the poker game. He's chasing that money or whatever. Old head walks up and he say, "Hey man, you mind if you miss that celebrate? You can just stop next celebrate, grab that for me because I'm getting ready to go on a sale and just chill on out for the rest of the day." Youngin said, "Dang man, you don't see me. You don't see me playing cards right now. I got you, OG. It's just 34-cent bag of chips. I just gave you $80 some." OG said, "It's not the money. It's the principle. We're supposed to have an agreement. You know how this goes." Youngin said, "All right, man, I got you, man. You tripping." OG said, "All right." Another door break came. COs cracked the sales. Youngin did not move from that poker table. He was either down. I don't know what was going on. The whole time I'm watching the old head because we jive talked a little bit. But I also knew to stay the heck out of his way because he had been down 24, 25 years already, had a little name for himself. The young man underestimated who he was dealing with because of his age, stature, etc. That store box brother, that older brother, man, he took his time. He walked across the pod slow. He walked up to the young brother that was playing poker, and this time there was no words to be said. He had got fed up, and he took a piece of, metal and went to his neck. This is prison. That occurred over 34 cents, literally. A Moon Lodge bag of shebang chips. Brother Anthony lost his life over a 5-inch Magnavox, a TV. It's that real in prison. It's literally that real. I continue to, rock it out, endure. Um, I made some brothers along the way up there, but all in all, it was a miserable experience. That first rodeo, that first prison I was at, it was a lot of death, a lot of people getting hurt, backbiting, gossiping, tension in the air. You never knew what was going on. It was just a lot. That was it. And I was glad when the counselor finally was like, "Yo, I got you. Your transfer is up. You're approved. You can go to a level 3." And man, just to know that I could leave there and go to a level 3, did I mention the counselor said I might be able to go to level 2? I was golden. I was ready. I needed to get off there. I needed a new start. I needed to get away from death. I needed to get away from all that has occurred up here. I've seen enough this first go round. Let me get up off here and try somewhere new. And on a lower level, I felt like if I survived on a level 4, I could definitely survive on a level 2 or level 3. That ain't nothing. Boy, was I sort of wrong. So now I get to leave Sussex 2 State Prison, level 4, maximum security, death, despair, depression, anger, anxiety. Man, I was glad to know that I was going to be able to make it up off there. I was even more happier, more glad to know that I was going to a lower level. Some guys, when they've got a life sentence, for instance, they've got to stay on a level 4 for at least 20 years before they can even get off there. That's hard, man. That's crazy to think that somebody's got to live 20 years on a place like Sussex. But I get it though. You know what I'm saying? I get it because at the same time, monsters do exist, right? So nobody's saying prison shouldn't exist and that there shouldn't be punishment and bad things don't happen. But man, as a kid that was a driver, where nobody in a crime where nobody was hurt physically, it was just ridiculous to be sent there with 144 years, all suspended but 19. Gotta stay charge free just to do 85%. Because if you catch a charge, the 85% is gonna shoot the 91. It might be 100 before you know it. So my transfer came up. I was happy. I was able to actually not just go to a level 3, but a level 2. And you know,
it should have been a good thing. I'm younger. I get off of a maximum security prison. I drop all the way down to a level 2. But the issue was I was still young. I had a chip on my shoulder. I was still angry, and I had started to get good at prison. Sussex 2 was the training grounds. It's the perfect place to get good at prison if you're willing to learn, if you know what I mean. So now I'm on a level 2, Haynesville Correctional Center, and I remember telling every brother I could whenever the situation came up in conversation that, hey man, I came from a level 4, you know, a maximum security. This ain't none. A lot of y'all ain't never been there. And for some of the guys, it backed them up off me, and I probably was doing that on purpose as a young kid. But some of them guys don't care. They don't care nothing about that. You got people that never been to jail. They don't care if you've been to jail, you know? And I'm starting to get into fights. I had decent jobs. I worked in the gym. I worked in the sewing factory, but man, I would get in trouble here and there. I started rocking with this cat from New York, man. We was cool, man. That was my people. And we was clicked up. You know what I'm saying? We would eat together. We would get money together. We were making a little moves here and there. You know, getting the pack in, doing things like that. And everything was good. We were eating good. We was able to get some money, you know. We were bidding. Anybody that's done time, man, you got that person you can get money with, hustle, you know, eat, work out, whatever. Y'all bidding, y'all good. That's brothers right there. But the issue was while we were there, my man, my brother, my right hand, he wanted to bring somebody in on the party, so to say. Me and him had been getting money, making moves, getting work and all that without anybody else in the mix. But he rocked with this dude. Dude had got transferred up there. And I remember going back and forth. I was like, nah, bro. I said, nah, because it's not broke. We don't need to fix it. But he was like, nah, man. He was adamant. Yo, I trust this dude. Finally, I gave in. Here we go. I'm in prison, you know, committing crimes and still feeding into peer pressure because I'm angry and I don't see freedom. I've still got over a decade and a half. And sure enough, man, it wasn't long. Everything was straight first, but it wasn't that much longer before me and my right hand at the time, we was under investigation and I was put right back in the hole. And I got put in the hole, I remember 55 days straight. And when I was back there, I had immediately lost like 37 pounds. I came out there looking like Skeletor. I was under investigation because the dude that my man brought in on the car, so to say, to get money with us, he was facing a whole nother street case in a whole nother city. And basically some youngins that was up under him or making moves for him, they had ran in somebody's house, did something bad, and now he was under investigation. They were trying to get him. This is when the Ricos were really starting to bubble, you know, and he was trying to throw anybody and everybody up underneath the bus that he could. And he was telling truths and lies. Literally. The truth that he told was right. Me and my mans was, you know, getting work and we would get money, you know, all this. He didn't know where we was getting it from, which was good. But the lie was he went on to say that me and my peoples had basically conspired to make sure somebody had got, you know, physically touched, quote unquote, or harmed or whatever it is in a city. I don't even know what he was talking about to this day. But yet and still, just because he put that out there, it forced the institution to say, you know what, we got to get them all up off there. And for me, because I came from a level 4, they weren't going to look into that case or that BS he was saying, but they were going to get me up off there. And they sent me right back to a level 4, the same level 4. So now I done went from receiving the Sussex to Haynesville Correctional Center. Went through all that. I'm getting money. Everything's decent. You know what I'm saying? Should have stayed on a level 2, chilling in a dorm situation where nobody was fighting. We was playing softball, you know, in the summertime, chilling. Now I'm right back on Sussex 2. But when they put me in the hole this time, they would keep me there for 9 months straight on Haynesville Correctional Center before transferring me to the hole on Sussex 2. This was about the time I almost lost my mind the first time in prison. Notice I said the first time. It gets real
when you're in the hole. It's it's isolation, it's segregation. You are alone. There's no connection to the outside world. I was on a level 2 now where I could go in the rec yard all day, but now I got sent back to the hole. Now I'm even more angry because this dude lied on me. I remember telling the guards, I said, man, I can't take this. And they took that the wrong way and put me on suicide watch. And basically what happens then is now you're in a hole in what they call a turtle suit. That means no clothing and nothing, just this protective thing, vest they put over you, and they watch you on camera. And you got to lay there in the cold with no sheets or nothing until they decide that you're okay. You get an eval. So don't say the wrong word if you get locked up. It's red flags. And now I'm in the hole, and it was serious, and I'm losing my mind. I'm angry, and I'm headed back to Sussex too. And now I'm in the hole in Sussex too. And I'm even better at prison. Just because I got caught up in this, that don't mean nothing. I really know how it runs now. And I got a little rep because I already been there before. So dudes already know my name. And my name was decent. It was a good name. So now I'm a young kid that done went to a level 2. It's like somebody literally going to do something great and then coming back to the brothers that was unable to make it off that level 4, for instance. And now you're able to tell a story, but that's the wrong type of hype. I couldn't even get it. I remember holding a sign up in the window to let the brothers know I was in the hole because I was just trying to get up out that joint, man. It was that serious. They would not let me out of that hole.
A quote: prison either creates monsters or saints. An old head had told me that quote. He had been locked up for 32 years in prison at the age of 16 for a crime in which, in his words, he said he did not commit. All of his family had gone. They had passed away. He had no support. And even if he wanted to fight for his freedom and prove his innocence, who would back him up? But then again, notice I said even if he wanted to, he would often be heard from the guards, talking to the guards, saying, hey, even if I made parole, I'm just going to catch a charge so I can stay. I don't know the world and I don't know a woman. Crazy, but he had some wisdom. So now I'm transferred from Haynesville Correctional Center hole to Sussex 2 State Prison hole. I'm back. I put a sign in the window. The window's about this wide, a little bit longer, with the sign that says my name to let the brothers know that I'm there. They seen it. They started to send stamps. That's usually what happens when brothers rock with you. They send stamps, crossword puzzles, candy bars if they can, because it's hard to eat back there. The stamps are used for things like the purchase of tobacco. I would purchase tobacco so then I could take the tobacco and buy trays so I could eat, especially when there were shifts there that I could. There were no answers. I didn't know when I was going to get out. And it was hard. If anybody's never been to the hole, I'll continue to say it is a very cruel, harsh thing. And that's why in some states they're starting to outlaw it for a certain period of time, the effects it has on the mental. In order for me to leave the cell that I was in the hole, I had to be shackled around the waist, to my wrist, to my ankles, and a dog leash would be clipped to the chain behind me around my waist, and I would be led to the shower or to the rec yard. The shower you would be locked into, and the rec yard was nothing more than a cage that was just about the size of a dog kennel. You could stand up in it. You could not lay down in it. You couldn't do anything. You could just feel the sun and breathe the air. And sometimes you had to bite the bullet and go through that dog kennel just to feel somewhat human and get out of the concrete and the cold inside. Mental health declining, ready to go. I'm ready to get out the hole. I cannot take it anymore. Let me out. I remember every time a guard came by, a counselor, a nurse, let me out. I would yell it out sometimes. When you're in a hole, you're surrounded by a bunch of people. All you hear is screaming and banging. It's just people that can't deal with the quiet. They got to make noise, man. George Jackson said if you were in there for at least 1 minute, it would change your life forever. The segregation unit. And boy, this had became my life over the course of some months, close to a year. And why should a human being have to adapt to that?
when no charge, no institutional actual infraction was given. But this is the system. They can do what they want. You are no longer free. They will do with you as they will. But eventually, my name got called, and I was able to go into general population, back on the compound, back on Sussex 2, back in the Terror Dome. And this began the series of a bunch of wild, crazy events. So I was back on a level 4 yard, Sussex 2, and here we go. First crazy event that occurred, I remember it was 2A, it was basically like a transition pod. I go in there, they put me in an empty cell. And the first night was cool. I was actually happy to have an empty cell because this time I could have my radio, unlike when I was in the hole, when I couldn't have nothing but writing utensils, paper, and hygiene, right? So it was like having a little apartment or studio apartment just for the night, and I was excited. But sure enough, the very next morning, first thing in the morning, cell pops, and here's this random guy. I don't know who he is. Who are you? Right? But in prison, you don't get to necessarily choose who your cell partner is. You can sometimes pay to get them moved, or vice versa, or request a cell change. But a lot of times, um, yeah, it's just it is what it is. Um, at this point in time, it was what it was. I didn't have the type of pool this time. It was new COs around, and they didn't necessarily know me. I didn't have a rapport with them, but if I was in one building, it would have been easier to accomplish what I was trying to do, which just was either get him or I out the cell. Why? Well, everything was cool. The first day I couldn't tell much. I was in the pod talking to some of the guys that I known. He was in and out the cell quite often, but I just figured he was a little bit older. Maybe he's using the restroom. Who knows? As long as none of my stuff was touched or missing, I didn't care. He lived there too. What could I say? But what I began to notice was he just started moving weird. He would walk up to everybody, whether he knew them or not, and wanted to start conversations. And he hadn't been in a dorm for or 2 hours and was already trying to buy or borrow something. And let me tell you, in prison, that's a very bad sign because that's almost immediately a red flag for somebody that stays in debt or doesn't mind being in debt. And when people in prison don't mind operating in debt, that means those are the people that are more likely to have drama brought to them. I did not want that person in my cell. I moved different. I had different things going on. I had a parlay I was getting ready to jump off. A parlay is just a gambling pool. NFL season was on the rise. I was going to get the store box jumping. A store box is when you 2 for 3 items. Basically, if an individual is hungry, they can get 2 soups, but they got to give you 3 back. 2 of 3 honey buns, they got to give you 5 back. It's trade, it's currency, it's store. This is what I was into at the time. Him, I don't know. He was a consumer. There's nothing wrong with that. But in prison, I'm telling you, there's 2 types of people. There's people that are trying to make moves and people that are getting victimized. And the people that frequent store boxes, I'm just being honest, they're getting victimized. They're getting taxed. And oftentimes, store day comes, they owe their whole bag out and they're going right back to the store box, man, to get something to eat the same night. For y'all that got loved ones out there, if somebody's constantly asking for money, that could be an indication that they might be caught in that cycle. I'm just saying. But it didn't stop there. By the time it was ready for lockdown, it's kind of a normal uh, action or known action in the penitentiary when you have to share a cell um, with somebody that at some point in the day you need to wash up because you're in a small space with another human being. And he had been running around on the rec yard, all that, and he had not washed up, and it was locked down. He was smelling, and I'm a pretty clean guy. I used to scrub my cell with Lisa soap and a rag and have hot water in a trash can and really get it in. But this guy was, to me, a savage. His socks were brown. He didn't care. He just kicked his boots off, got right in the bed with his jeans and t-shirt on. I said, this is not going to work. He slept over top of me. I just couldn't I couldn't deal with it. I just kept feeling like dust or dirt or whatever from this guy was gonna fall on me when he moved his blanket. And as I was sitting there trying to chill, sure enough, he had moved his blanket and it was like some gravel or something fell off and it hit the floor and I freaked out. I immediately jumped off the bed. I said, bro, you got to get off from that bunk right now. You cannot stay there, bro. This is a young version of me, y'all. I got to remind you, this is not the present me. He said, what do you mean? I said, bro, you dirty, you nasty. You got to get up out of here. He said, you going to have to make me. Well, let me tell you something. We're in a corner cell in the pod. You can't run outside the pod. You can't get outside your cell. You're locked in. So if somebody starts attacking you in there, you better know how to fight because you can get finished in there. There's no help coming. The way you could get help is if you can get to the silver button. There's a silver button on the wall by the door. It's got an intercom. It automatically will send a beep to the officer's desk, and they'll know to hit the intercom, and then you could say you need help, but you got to make it there. Let me tell you something. There's been plenty of fights in those cells, especially on Sussex and other institutions, where one person did not make it out again. He couldn't get to that button for help and probably didn't think he needed it at first. But a slip, a fall, anything in a small environment in space where it's nothing but concrete and steel, I'm telling you, is problems. It's an issue. You don't want to be in a situation like that. That's why it's imperative in prison. You got to be careful who you move in with in the cell. But we ended up getting it in. We were able to get it in and end the fight. It was a point where I just realized that there was no need to keep going. I just told him, look, man, hit the button. Tell him you got to get out of here. I didn't even care if they took me to the hole. He hit the button, and sure enough, they took me back to the hole.